Hey, welcome to Into the Channel, podcast primarily about women's football. I'm your host, Dino Decespedes, and as always, I'm joined by my co-host, Mr. Grant Engle. What is up, man?
I'm feeling fantastic, buddy. Those were some real hoops that were being played over the weekend. A lot of bangers, especially for the teams we care about.
I mean, there's 8 in particular that were getting busy in Europe, and I think varying degrees of like stuff to kind of key in on, because as we know, we're locked into these Champions League teams. 4 of them, weren't in action recently. Another 4 were, and kind of interesting to see, how that played into this past weekend's results. I kind of want to like dig into each of these teams. I surprised you a little bit. I kind of gave you a little warning pre-show that I had something for you. It's nothing crazy, but what I want to do is I want to look at the 8 teams that are still alive in Champions League. Look at what they, kind of like their recent form, but more specifically what they did this past weekend, and ascribe to them an arrow rating. Either that it's pointing up, it's pointing down, or it's middling and it's just looking to its left and its right.
Okay, that's fair. I can handle that. This is the kind of curveball that I am able to hit, unlike my high school baseball career.
Let's go. All right. Let's make some decent contact here, Mr. Grant Engle. Where you want to get started?
Let's get started with a beverage, man.
Let's go.
Look, I think all of our pals, they're out there working hard. We're working hard. We got a lot of things going on. Let's just have a beverage and enjoy the football.
Cheers to that. Cheers to working hard.
Cheers to you. Cheers to the football. I guess cheers to working hard. Golly, does it have to be so? Does it have to be so hard all the time? Goodness.
Well, let's work hard on the show. Cheers to working hard on the show.
There we go.
Let's get to it. I already asked this, Mr. Granning. This is a little tricky because we've got 8 teams, and I threw Man City in there because I've got some Man City takes. I want to talk about what they did in the FA Cup. So technically, we've got 7 matchups to talk about. A real hodgepodge. No real rhyme or reason to how we're going to attack this. Mr. Granning, how should we attack these 7 matchups?
We talked about doing them in chronological order from when the teams played. Looking at the rundown. Is that how it actually shook out?
It might be. Well, I know Granada, Barcelona played first.
Okay.
We can start there.
Let's start there. Barcelona 2, Granada 0. Depending on how you look at things, maybe you might want a bigger scoreline, but I think Barcelona did the job.
This one was interesting. I mean, 2-0, a pretty thin scoreline. The second, the first goal is a PK. The second one is an Aissa Kamara, just kind of like right place, right time. It was awesome to see her get the goal. And really fun, kind of like gleeful celebration from Kamara.
Yep.
But also not really like the Barca goals that we're used to kind of seeing, and I've talked about this before, just the natural limits of you lose, maybe the best player in the world, maybe the second best player in the world, maybe the fourth or fifth best player in the world. And they just start to add up, and I think like you can see some talent there, and it wouldn't surprise me if they won. But, if this was another team that lost their top 2, 3, 4, their 5 top, like, we would be like, oh, this team's in major, major trouble. But for whatever reason, since it's Barcelona, they still kind of hold the mantle as favorites. I think that's fair, but I'm starting to kind of look at things a little bit sideways here. What's been your take on kind of Barcelona and maybe, what kind of shape they're in at this point in the year?
I think they have a great opportunity to build on their already incredible depth. I think it gives players kind of the opportunity to figure out who they are in the context of Barcelona's style of play. I mean, obviously we talk about like the footballing culture at Barcelona. You bring players in, you develop so many players from the academy. They live the Barcelona way of life, the Barcelona way of playing football. And now they get to do it in actual league action. They'll get to do it in Champions League action. Some of them have already been doing it in Champions League action. I thought it was good. Sarah Jordi plays the full 90 against Granada, puts up what I felt like was a pretty good performance. And so, you're just going to get some experience for these players. Shirt and Live played a little more than an hour. I thought she played about an hour. Let's, if you're Barca, just keep getting these players into
Mhm.
kind of into a good rhythm.
I think so, and I think you look at some of the spots on the field, like a dig into the stats is one was really telling to me. You look at what Barcelona is able to do, 602 touches in Granada's half, but only 67 touches in the box. So
Mm.
it's like that's a lot of time, in that sort of like that 30-ish yard area, between the 18 and midfield, where you're just kind of like trying to probe and figure out what you can do. No Alexia, no Aitana. Patri comes in later. I think she logs like 26 minutes.
Right.
Was really connecting passes, at a high level. But not the same level of kind of like dominance, I would say, in the attacking midfield, and it definitely showed in that number. Barca still puts up a ton of shots, 10 on target, but only one goal again from open play. And that was Kamara on a little bit of a sloppy, kind of a sloppy action. Passing was there. I think we kind of sort of move on, but hit me with an arrow rating. Where are you with Barcelona on your arrow rating? I kind of know where I'm at with Barca.
Before I go to the arrow, I just want to point out in the 64th minute, how's this for? I mean, I know people have been paying attention to hockey lately with the Olympics. How's this for a line change? In the 64th minute, Barcelona brought on Alexia Putellas, Kike Nazareth, Patrick Guijarro, and Selma Perejuelo.
Mm,
Good subs, coach.
good subs.
Uh, um,
But you kind of would want to see something at that
then
point,
they
right?
knocks in some goals, right? Yeah, I think that's fair. I think that's totally fair.
So it's like I don't know. We'll see. I think Carla Julia, one of the newer players, had a great game too. I thought was very effective.
Yeah,
Kind
she
of out
looked great.
wide. Yeah, so I think that's a real player for sure. Like kind of ready to step right in and I think start making some waves. All right, but Barca, we're not gonna. Let's stay. Oh, arrows.
Sideways.
Let's go. Same. That's
Like doesn't,
cosign.
but it doesn't have to be going up. Like it's fine. Sideways is totally fine for them. I think.
I think so too. I mean, it's still pretty early.
Yeah.
If it's still sideways as we kind of are hitting the stretch run, then we can raise some alarm bells. But this is an experienced organization. They kind of know what to do. Let's keep things chronological. Marseille hosting Lyon. This was also some Saturday action.
Lyon 6, Marseille 2. As the match starts, Lyon taking the pitch, jump by Van Halen playing over the loudspeaker. Got to get excited for that.
Let's go.
I get up,
Might
but
as
it never
well.
gets me down. Might as well jump. All right, enough. I thought the match was weirdly a little open for the first 30 minutes, a little up and down. Marseille didn't really. Marseille had some opportunities. It felt like, even though I think they recorded one shot in the first half, but it felt like they had some opportunities like in the center of Lyon's defense, but they just kept getting outrun by Tarsiane and like multiple times where like, oh, little breakaway. Oh no, wait, turns out Tarsiane's long stride and she's faster than you.
Yeah, this one was a fun one. It was like some back and forth, like like not quite preseason vibes, but things were a little bit loose. I think that the both teams kind of wanted to play a little bit. Marseille logs 6 shots to Lyon 17. So both teams were kind of like active from that standpoint. Marseille, I think, did a great job. So if you look at Lyon's touches, 282 are in their own half, 198 in the opposition half. So Lyon spent most of the day in their defensive half with regard to touches. When they did kind of advance the ball, they were able to kind of get pretty good penetration. Obviously, 6 goals on the day, and I think the charge led there by Tabitha Chawinga, who obviously we rewind back to her time at PSG. She's dominating D1 Arkema at that point 2 years ago. Makes the move to Lyon. Doesn't quite I don't want to say it doesn't quite take, gets minutes, gets opportunities, but it seems like only now we're really starting to, get glimpses at what Chawinga at Lyon could look like. And I think it's borderline spectacular. I thought she was awesome in this one.
Yeah, I mean the speed, the skill, the smarts. I loved her instincts and intelligence to stay on side when she scored her second goal. She like her positioning was perfect. It's one of those plays where you see a lot of times where the attacking player just like it's in their brain to just try to cheat a little bit and just try to get forward. And she was like, nope, to take one more half step back, stay on side, and then she's wide open to knock it home. Speaking of line changes, we're talking hockey. Halftime. Who comes on for Lyon? Demaris, Dumornay, Brand, Becho.
Yeah, let's go.
That works.
Just another 2 goals, right? Rolling into the Dumornay, right? Those are 3 goals. Yeah. Just 3 goals, just roll right into the game. Chewinga with got the assist on the Dumornay goal if I'm remembering correctly.
I think so.
But really, I mean, a really nice game from Lyon's attack, which we kind of wanted to see. I think we're going to see what they look like here. The one thing that I'm worried about with Lyon, I keep thinking about last year, and one of the things where I was like, oh, I'm not really sure about them. I thought it was going to bite them versus Barcelona. It ends up biting them around earlier versus Arsenal. But I'm like, I don't like that they're not really getting pushed domestically, and they didn't really get pushed in the Champions League group stage either last year. They kind of cruised until they got to Arsenal, and they hadn't built up that mettle yet last year. I don't feel the same way about them this year. I feel like maybe it's the Giraldes effect, some new players, some new competition. The lineups don't feel as static. It looks like, feels like, maybe it's the turning of a page at Lyon a little bit. But I don't know. What's your take last year versus this year? Do you feel like, like this is still one of the true blue contenders, or are they just a shade outside of that?
True blue contender for sure. You add Giraldes, you add Johannes, you add Brand. I think they are. I think they could win it, man. Like, I guess it's probably not that bold to say for a team that's won the trophy 8 times already. But I think they are kind of on a similar journey. I think you're on to, I understand like they're not getting pushed domestically. I think that's totally fair. Who knows if they're going to play Perry FC again, though, who will just magically give them a tough game.
I was going to push them. Yep.
But I think everything that they have, the speed, the skill, they're just they got to figure out how to play Giraldes' system. And they could be peaking. They could end up peaking. They could end up peaking at the right time. Easy for me to say.
I think so. Not the easy for you to say the part that clearly was not true. But I think they could be peaking at the right time. They could also be sleeping giant potential. I think when Giraldes, I think takes it to that level. His level of genius and his track record for sure. Corbin Schrader scores the opening goal, a banger. I think another player that I think, if the leap is real, that's definitely something. And a player who logged 90 minutes in this one that you didn't mention, another offseason addition, Ashley Lawrence. Great to see Lawrence, just put up that many minutes and, again, work her way into the mix here. I'm not sure what I'm going to do with my arrow yet. I need another like 10 or 12 seconds to kind of decide here, but I am kind of like being like, Lyon, maybe some sleeping giant potential, because they haven't really been like an in-style pick for winning the title. I feel like there's a lot of Arsenal, there's a lot of Chelsea, there's a lot of Barcelona. I don't hear a lot of people picking Lyon out here to win the whole thing. And I'm not sure that that's the worst pick you could make at this point.
Definitely not. I mean, I'm glad you say it. To quote the great David Lee Roth, I ain't the worst that you see. No, okay, you see what I mean.
What are you doing? What is this?
Well, I mean, they came out to jump, man. I mean, I'm just gonna quote jump lyrics during this discussion. What can I do?
Sure. Might as well.
But no, I think they could win the title. I think they're a totally fair pick. I think they're super legitimate. Giraldes kind of pushes them to a new level. All the talent that they added, they can score. I'll say, I thought it was weird, though, in those couple chances, like half chances, because they got snuffed out pretty quickly. But, like, right through the middle of their defense, I was like, I wonder like if that happens against a team that might employ like Sam Kerr or Alessia Russo or Lynette Bierenstein or Pernille Harder, that could go poorly. But I think they have some time to kind of build up to it. So I'm going to say just by virtue, and I don't know if the match versus Marseille is going to like really dictate this, but I just think on GP, I'm saying arrow pointing up.
I like it. I like it. I'm of two minds for sure. I'm gonna stay arrow pointing sideways a little bit for Lyon,
All right.
only because. But I think they're close. I think they're close. I think, you know, I think they're one really nice, solid performance away from kind of like flipping that. Not that it matters. Anyway, let's move on. Not that they care. No, nobody actually cares about my arrow rating, but except us. Let's shift gears though. Real Madrid, Tenerife. This one, some fireworks, and not necessarily the good kind in this one.
Yeah, we might as well go ahead and jump to the next match. All right, that's the last one.
It better be.
No, at this point, people are like, all right, dude, enough. I hated that stomp that Linda Caicedo took early in the match. It was a bad challenge. It was, I think, cynical. Really, you weren't going to get the ball there. I guess, I don't know any of these people. Obviously, I don't think Moreno was trying to hurt her, but like, you weren't going to get the ball in that spot. So to see Caicedo go off in the 12th minute, pretty gross.
Yeah, it did. It looked very, violent. Obviously that foul, but it also didn't look like the injury to Caicedo would be anything permanent. I haven't heard any kind of follow up there. And then when you look at what Tenerife does as a team, 0 shots on the day, 22% possession, only connect on 60% of the passes. They didn't really have a chance from jump, so it definitely doesn't excuse it. But this wasn't a team that kind of was ready to compete from that standpoint. And the good thing for Real Madrid, if there is a look at the silver lining, Alba Redondo comes in the game, just
mad,
happy that she's coming in, but also not happy.
Exactly. Ready to play football, ready for the Redondo revenge game, just to have the back of Linda Caicedo. Yeah, she looked like a world beater out there. That's the Alba Redondo that we know, professional goal scorer, just causing havoc for defenses. And it's a gear that, when Madrid acquired her, we were like, all right, that should work. And that's what you want from her.
100%. Yeah, I love. You look a little closer. 32 touches on the day, 15 in the opposition box. She was just going crazy in there. Yeah, absolutely. Just set up shop down there and just wreck everything that's happening. 7 shots in the day, 2 on target. Gets the goal in the 46. Like you mentioned, a lot of key passes. Just creating problems all day, and just came in with the right energy. I still kind of feel like I don't have the answer for this, but I wish that Real Madrid could figure out a way to get Redondo more regular minutes. Yeah. I'm not sure what you move around, how you make that work, but she's so good that I feel like the more minutes you give her, the more productivity per 90 you're going to get, because she's doing all this, not quite with scraps, but with a lot of stuff, minutes getting tugged around and no real, rhyme or reason to when she's going to be expected to come in. She comes in this one in the 12th, and like a true professional, just comes in and gets it done and essentially leads the team to the win here.
29 years old. I think she should be eager to play as many minutes as she can in this point of her career, probably near the apex of her prime still. It's funny that's where your mind went to kind of talk about her minutes, because I'm right there with you. I was thinking about her minutes played, what she's able to do with Real Madrid. And look, Alba, Seattle is a beautiful place. I think you can find a nice home here. There's a lot of stuff to do. It's good vibes. We could use a number 9 who's a professional goal scorer. So just consider it. I'll put the feelers out. I'm sure the scouts at Seattle Reign FC have not heard of Alba Redondo and how good she is at scoring goals, but I'll see if I could put in a good word.
I'm sure you can. I'm sure you can fire off an email.
Sure.
Good writing skills on your part, so I trust you.
I appreciate that.
Let's move this thing along. No, but then I can't have Redondo leaving my Blancas, especially not here for the stretch run. All right, which way is your arrow pointing for Real Madrid?
I'm gonna say if the Caicedo injury is not serious, which you're right, I don't think there's been any public reporting. I'm gonna still say up. I like the way they look. We've talked about them building the depth. Arrow pointing up for Las Blancas.
I like it. I'm gonna join you on the arrow pointing up, and I think there's two things I want to hit. Obviously, I mentioned, Caicedo injury probably doesn't look that serious. Fingers crossed. But Redondo comes in, looks great. Even Navarro, I think the last few weeks. This is obviously like a player that's like we already know what she's about, but I think has secretly hit another level. Maybe these last like 2 months, I would say.
Yep.
She fires a missile from distance late in this one that ends up becoming the Engle goal to kind of really seal it. Give them that second one, and she just can affect the game in so many different ways. And it's almost like when Real Madrid falls into neutral or they're just sort of spinning their wheels a little bit, it kind of feels like Navarro's the player that not necessarily they go to, but kind of steps up and be like, oh no, I got it. Like, I got this. Let me get a couple spins here, a couple possessions here to see what I can do. And it's usually a good move.
100%. It's a great call by you. She is, 25 years old. She grabs the game by the scruff of the neck when you need her to. And I feel like, glad you shouted out Engle. Her goal, the kick, the boot she put on that was just as angry as I think Colombian supporters were about that Moreno foul on Caicedo. I think Navarro, Engle, and Dobritz are 3 players who will be like, hey, I don't like the way this game is going right now. We are going to fix that.
I love that you called out those 2 players specifically, Engle and Dobritz, because those are 2 players that I think have reached higher peaks in their career than they're at now.
Sure.
But it's not that they're past their prime. It's not coming back from injury. It's just waiting to click into place, right? Because I think you can see it. You can, especially with Dobritz, like she's getting closer. Her minutes yanked around a ton when she was at Lyon. So I think if her minutes start to kind of steady with how she's been looking recently, that could be huge. And I think Engle, I think it's a great point that there was a little bit of frustration there because I think she's always in the right place, always in the mix, always involved in positive stuff, but hasn't kind of like been the the key pass or the key strike, as often as I'm sure she would want.
Yeah, I think that's totally fair. Yeah, Dobritz 96% complete pass completion percentage in this match. Is that good?
Hard to do better. All right, so we've got a couple arrows pointing up for Real Madrid. Let's keep things chronological. We're gonna head to North London. Arsenal 3, Bristol City 0. This one was an FA Cup battle for a spot in the quarterfinals.
Arsenal 3, Bristol City 0. Professional win. Should have been a win. It was a win. Shout out to the announcer, who I didn't grab his name. My apologies there, pal. Who mentioned that Kim Little has scored in 3 FA Cup finals, which is a great stat. She obviously gets the goal in the 25th minute here. She's an all-time legendary player, all-time Seattle Reign Football Club legend as well. They're just doing what they got to do, man. I couldn't be more in on them kind of trending upward. Spoiler alert, I think that's the direction that my arrow is going to go. I've been saying it for weeks now. I just think that they're playing fast, they're playing strong, they're playing confident, and it's not just against Bristol City. They're playing that way against the good teams too. No disrespect to Bristol City.
No, and it's an important point, because this is what good teams do,
Right.
and this is not always what Arsenal's done, as kind of like a quote unquote good team. Like, you want to see Arsenal kind of show up and handle a Bristol City side, in this kind of manner, especially with, some lineup movement. I love that Kim Little gets the goal and just basically outmuscles, like everyone in a 5-6 yard vicinity for that goal. Is just like, I'm a little hungrier than you, at this point in the match, and I want to kind of score. Caitlin Ford a few minutes later draws a foul, becomes a penalty kick. Russo gets that penalty kick saved. But I think Caitlin Ford, Leanne Sanderson said this like last season, or maybe at the very, very beginning of this season, that Katie McCabe and Caitlin Ford were the lifeblood of Arsenal. I had never thought about that.
Mm.
And even when she said it, I kind of was like, I don't think I agree with it. But every minute I watched since then, I'm like, I'm dumb, clearly. Why would I ever?
Dumb, but yeah.
No, but I mean, like, it was just, it was, I mean, probably should have been a little bit more open-minded with that take. But ever since she said it, I can't not see it. Like McCabe's such an engine, Ford's such an engine. And in this one specifically, it's a lot like Navarro. When the lineup kind of changes and now we move things around, Ford is so freaking dependable. Her work rate is crazy. She's fast. She runs hard. She plays hard. And it's infectious.
Caitlin Ford is a great example that counting stats are not everything. In the WSL and UEFA Women's Champions League this year, she has 1 goal and 2 assists. She has been playing way better than those numbers would indicate. Like you said, I think you describing her as the engine is totally correct. I mean, she puts pressure on the defense. She wins the ball in important areas. She knows when to recycle when she has to. She's just like a good decision-making football machine. She knows how to be in the right spots when she needs to be. And, you put that in the context of the other great players at Arsenal who just continue to look like they're playing with more and more confidence. You got real trouble for any opponent out there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the confidence is such a big key, because we talked about this team obviously raises the trophy last year and then gets off to like a little bit of a sputtering start this year. And in this match, to see Kim Little score, to see also one of my favorites coming back from injury, so almost there, Victoria Belova, gets a goal in this one, and it's like to win one of the big one of these huge trophies, you kind of need contributions from everywhere. Belova, a great player, to be like, all right, well, if we can have that player ready, as a player to be able to go to in a matchup, that's massive, because she's so huge, so creative, and is productive. She kind of like is one of those players that outproduces, like he's just involved in goals and assists at a really, really high rate. And then in the 69th minute in this one, Frida Monum, another player that if you're an Arsenal fan, you're really, really happy that she scores.
Yeah.
Makes it happen off an Emily Fox chance that gets created. So Fox, late in this one, splits the double team. Looks like flash era Dwayne Wade.
Yeah, I'm saying, dude.
Just that was so nasty. Enters the 18. Basically setting up my favorite situation in WoW. So the Fox in the box situation, and then finds Frida Monum to seal it, to make it 3-0. But I love that the productivity, the offense, the counting stats, the goals, the assists came from players that we're not necessarily used to seeing week in, week out put those up.
For sure. Yeah, I mean, I feel like Monum has been pretty consistently good over the past month or so too. Obviously, the Norwegian star, you already know that she's able to produce. Palova comes on at halftime. The Dutch kind of has that just play I know I try to avoid this sometimes, but then I go into these, just a very Dutch way of playing football, of just okay, where do I fit in here? What's the smartest thing for me to do in this situation? That's what I'll do. And she, to get a goal in that scenario, you're just they just have a lot of ways to beat anybody right now.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah. And that's kind of what you want to see, because in these matchups, especially like the 2-leggers, you got to go to different stuff. That's a lot of minutes to be able to compete and be able to beat some of these top teams. Now there's only 8 teams left, so it's going to get definitely tricky. But I think you tipped your hand a little bit. Which way's your arrow pointing for my
Way
Gunners?
up, buddy. For
Let's
weeks.
go.
For weeks, I've been all over this.
Let's go. Our first double up arrow.
Well, I
Oh
thought
no,
it was Madrid,
Madrid
also.
Yeah.
Both
All
your
right,
teams.
second.
See, I'm just
Let's
co-signing
go.
all your favorite teams.
Yeah. Did I cheat on the? Did I set this up to? No, I didn't. Let's shift gears here. You might be in for a surprise where these arrows are going. Chelsea 2, Manchester United 1. Another FA Cup tie. Chelsea advances. Manchester United, despite kind of like a tough scheduling, I'll say, puts up a tough fight. And this one, wasn't the most beautiful game of football I've ever seen.
I think that's fair. And maybe it just kind of speaks to some of my sensibilities. I loved it. I thought that was real hoops out there. Let's, you know what? We're gonna crash into each other.
Midwestern. It's a real Midwestern take.
No, nobody's wearing sleeves in the cold. We're not scared of anything out here. I had a blast watching this. Aaron Cuthbert should have scored, but PTJ is 10 feet tall when she needs to be. I mean, then PTJ makes another save. PTJ makes the save against Cuthbert, and then a little later makes the save against Lauren James. I was just like, she's just going to stop the shots from all of the ITC's favorite players at this point.
Yeah, I mean, well, she's borderline ITC favorite player. Like also PTJ true. Is on an absolute heater right now. Almost, won that one single handedly.
Yep.
And to their credit, kept it really close. I want to talk a little bit about Chelsea though, because we've gotten on them pretty hard, for kind of sputtering. They're for sure a top 4 team in the WSL. I feel comfortable saying that.
That's fair. Yeah.
But, in all seriousness, I think we would be better served kind of like as a, WOSO analysis, wherever our standing is in the field, to kind of not really look at Chelsea just as like this staggering disappointment. Oh, so big payroll, big expectations. So I kind of make that top 4 joke sort of serious, but sort of tongue in cheek, because like these are really good teams that are alongside them. And I'm not sure how much better Chelsea is than United. I'm not sure if this iteration of Chelsea is better than City or Arsenal. And to me, it kind of feels like, economics aside, those 4 teams are kind of swimming in the same pool. And, that probably makes them 4 of the best 6 or 7 in Europe, 8 in Europe, which is still a really, really great place to be. Even if you're Chelsea and you feel disappointed, like it's still incredible that they're here competing with a pathway to the final, even if it is a little disappointing. But I'm not sure it should be disappointing. There's really good teams out there. There's really good teams in their league, and there's good teams across Europe. So I kind of want to cleanse my palate a little bit with Chelsea. I like that they won this one, despite like not really being like in killer form. So I'm really curious to see these next few weeks from them.
100%. I think maybe again, just from where I was born and some of my sensibilities, sometimes you just got to get some ugly wins sometimes that can actually help turn things around, or just everybody kind of look at each other and be like, all right, we're able to do that. We know we're actually better than that. So let's kind of build on it. The Naomi Girma goal, obviously 99th minute, it's a cleanup goal, but she's where she's supposed to be, on the back post. She has the intelligence and the instincts and the physicality to be able to get in there and knock that home. We've talked about it. She hasn't looked very good. She hasn't looked Naomi Girma like in a Chelsea uniform. If maybe that's more fair to say. So for her to get that in that spot to knock out a good team in the FA Cup, is that something that can kind of galvanize the defense, build some confidence for her? I think that could be very promising for them. And even, Sam Kerr's swinging side karate kick goal to open the proceedings, open them in the 78th minute, but open the scoring. I think there are things that they can take away and say, yep, we won ugly, but we had to win ugly, and we're not, and we. That's not another trophy that's just poof gone into the wind.
Yeah, I mean, I think everything is going to be hard. I think what you're saying, and we might kind of be landing on the same conclusions. Everything from here on out is going to be hard fought. Not
Should
just this
be.
season. I think probably coming seasons. For as long as we're doing this, but um, I think that's. I still think that's okay. I think it's okay to win ugly. I think
Yeah.
you help yourself by winning ugly. Versus just being, hey, it wasn't our day, or it goes to PKs, or whatever. Just kind of decide we weren't super that into it to begin with. But I'm interested to see, you mentioned Gurma. I don't think it's strictly. I think it's a little bit. I think their defense has to get better. I also think their offense has to get better. I don't
Yeah.
think it's a Gurma. What's going on with Gurma? And it's not a what's going on with Gurma issue. It's like it really is the entire organism that hasn't quite figured out what it is and what it should look like, what it should be doing. That's okay. There's still time in the season, but I don't know. I think I might surprise you with this one. My arrow for Chelsea pointing up, because I think it was a little bit of a treacherous time. This Manchester United matchup, not quite a trap game, but sort of a trap game. You're looking at United, be like, all right, they had Champions League action. We should roll this team. Do we how hard do we have to play? We're at home. Do we? But to their credit, they held it down and they advanced.
Can we do? I like where your head's at here. Is can we do not quite a trap game? Kind of felt like a must win if we could do another sports
Mm-hmm.
radio cliche. And like when you have a must win, if you get an ugly win and a must win, everybody kind of looks at each other and goes, okay, we had to win and we won.
I like the must win, and I like the winning ugly must win. Now let me hit you with this: the FA Cup draw. When we get to the quarter, let's fast forward to the quarterfinals. April 5th. Who does Chelsea draw? None other than our guy, Martin Ho, Tottenham, and Senior upset, and all the problems that come with facing that side.
I can't wait. It's going to be
I can't.
fantastic. Fairly
I'm gonna
interesting
predict.
game Tottenham just played.
I'm gonna predict that that's gonna be the hardest I ever done in my entire life.
Yeah, yeah, I would say that's probably about right. As an Arsenal supporter, I think yeah, I think that's probably the way that's going to go. Um I mean, did you see Gopset's penalty in that match?
I didn't see
Um
it.
all right, so you know, obviously match finish in Tottenham's FA Cup match 2-2 versus London City Lionesses. They win on penalties 9-8. Galpset took the fourth penalty and just never a doubt. Sends the keeper the wrong way, tucks it into the left corner. Absolutely fantastic. Yeah, I think it's going to be, another London derby for us. Um, we get to see how Tottenham stacks up against a great team, and we get to see how Chelsea stacks up against a team that has to be looking at this as the biggest match we've played in quite a while.
Yeah. No, I mean it's the if this one versus United was a must win. I think that we got to keep they continue to stay must wins. As we play out the entire string. Um, I'm gonna be. I want to talk a little bit. Well, Manchester United before we hop off this one. My arrow for them, I think, also pointing up. They're at this place right now. They kind of remind me of a team like in the March Madness,
Mm,
where they're pulling upsets, but they're also winning handily. So it's not a fluke,
right.
like and like the United's putting up really impressive results in not a fluky way. But they're putting up results that are a little bit loftier than I think is deserved, and it's like they keep outperforming like what we expect
Sure.
by I don't know 50% or whatever. Like so, it's like at some point we got to be like either this team is good or this team has a knack for outperform like playing exceeding their potential in these big matchups. Either way, I think it's a good sign. Arrow pointing up for me.
I'm with you. I'm still a United believer. I mean, Jess Park, almost rips the post off the hinges with a shot. Um, you
It's
know,
awesome.
I thought the announcer did a great job of saying doesn't even get credit for a shot on target for that great hit, which is always a bummer. Um, but yeah, Awujo gets the goal on the set piece, good sub mark to kind of force added extra time. Um, but yeah, I'm with you. I didn't mention it for Chelsea. We're in agreement. I think it's arrow pointing up for Chelsea. You grind out that win, you see where you're going from there, and I'm definitely still arrow pointing up for Manchester United. Yeah, it's a bummer of a loss. You're out of the running for that trophy, but there's still something to build on there. So yep, more arrows pointing up, more agreement between us.
I like it. Um, I'm gonna have a little bit of a mind bender here for you, but I want to talk about another FA Cup tie, just because it is your team, and this is a team that probably is certainly at the level of some of the other Champions League competitors this season. Manchester City, they get past Sheffield United.
You're goddamn right we did. Never a doubt. We're the league leader in WSL. I think Sheffield United is 10th in the championship. No disrespect to them, but that's the way that was always going to go. There was a moment later in the match where Benny played the ball into the box, and Bunny Shaw, Sydney Lohman, Grace Clinton, and Lauren Hemp were all inside the 18. The Lohman's shot gets blocked, and the ball eventually goes out for a goal kick. But I was just like, we didn't even have Fujino came off the field as a sub at that point, and Miedema's not standing out there either at that moment. So um, a lot of firepower, a lot of depth. We look pretty overwhelming right now.
Yeah, no doubt. I would love to see Loman just bury that one, just because
Right.
it would have been a nice, it's to the Arsenal point earlier. You want to have your players, with notches in their belt. That would have been a nice one for Loman in that spot. Shout out to the announcer too, who was pronounced. I'm not sure if this is correct, but he was Imam Benny, who we've been talking to, pronouncing that way, was pronouncing it B&E,
Why was
which
he doing that?
I got such a kick because I kept thinking of like B&E, like breaking and
Of
entering.
course. What else would somebody think of? I was thinking the exact same thing.
I'm like, I don't know. That seems pretty fitting. Two assists on the day. That one to Loman, also almost a third. But for me, the player of the match, Alba Fugino.
Let's
The
go.
just the Fugino that was promised. I mean, dazzling, absolutely dazzling. Nothing that Sheffield could do. Um, I like Fugino getting reps, like these, like not quite sparring reps, but like real reps to go out there and do, just cut up these defenses, so that when Fujino comes back against the tougher competition, WSL Champions League next season, she's got all of these like winning time reps, on her
Yep.
resume for City. I think it's a huge thing. I think it's a really smart thing by Jaegers to be doing. And this was just a Fujino masterclass.
She just has the ability to be spectacular at times. I mean, the
Mm.
she can cut in. There are times where you see her like weave in between defenders, and she doesn't need much space at all to operate. And then she's able to pick her head up and be like, "Okay, yep, time to rip a shot," and she can do it like with the snap of a finger. Um, yeah, I mean, we've been talking about her since the 2023 World Cup. She's still 22 years old. I think she's an absolute beast out there. So yeah, I look forward to her continued development. It's going to be hard with all that depth that City's able to put out there, but she's going to get in and she's going to get minutes, and I think City rightfully trusts her in some of these kind of moments.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And I think that trust is only growing, which is great to see. Let's fast forward to April 5th, the FA Cup quarterfinals, where while Chelsea's battling seeing upset in Tottenham, Manchester City's going to be locking horns with Birmingham City, the battle of the cities. We'll see, who comes out on top in that one. But nice draw for City. Oh, I had one big City question,
Hmm.
a bit of a mind bender. R.I.P. to Lebo. What would If City were in the field of 8 in the Champions League, where would you predict that they'd finish? Because, I mean, I think about what they did to Barcelona last year.
Mm-hmm.
I look at what they're doing in WSL.
Mm-hmm.
I look at what the WSL teams are doing in the Champions League. And then I look at the health situation with City. That was so big last year.
Yeah.
Lauren Hemp, huge. Some of these players, I was just like, oh man, if they just, like I kind of feel like if City were in this field, and it's tough to say because they don't have the extra, grind of these Champions League group stage matches. They get to kind of coast a little bit.
It's fair.
But if this version of City was in the Champions League, I'm not sure that they wouldn't be my pick to win the whole thing.
They could absolutely win it, in my opinion. A healthy Bunny Shaw, too. Like a healthy Bunny Shaw and Lauren Hemp make all the difference. Miedema's experience as well, and just, her ability in the central part of the field. Yeah, they could win, and I think they would win if you get Bunny Shaw in top form in the knockout stages. So I think they would be one of the absolute favorites. I think it would be them. I think they would leapfrog Chelsea and Arsenal, and I would be looking at them right on the same tier as Barcelona and Lyon.
Wow. That's fascinating because like we might be in a place where City just, runs, just rips through the entire WSL season, walks to the title, and maybe we're looking at the Champions League winner and being like, I'm not sure. It would be one of those what would happen kind of things, like the prime Pacquiao Mayweather, an age-old question.
Mm-hmm. Or 2024 Orlando Pride versus 2024 Barcelona.
Never know. Never get to the bottom of it. One more matchup that I want to hit. This one, we're going to scoot over to Frauen Bundesliga. We did our arrows, right? City arrows, obviously pointing up.
Way up.
Way up. There we go. Not one of the options, but we'll let it go. But this is another. We'll go to Frauen Bundesliga. This matchup featured 2 Champions League teams. Bayern Munich hosting Wolfsburg. Big scoreline in this one, but I think when you look closer, some stuff to kind of take away, from this matchup.
Do you think it was a deceiving scoreline?
I didn't get a chance to watch this one live, so I saw the scoreline. Then I looked at kind of like the numbers, tried to get a read on the game, and then I watched it back. Was not what I expected.
Yeah.
I think it was a little, and then you kind of look into it, 4-1 scoreline, obviously massive. Wolfsburg gets the opening goal, within the first 16, 17 minutes of the match. Kessie Busi, no relation to Badass. 6 shots to 1 in the first half, 3 on target to 1 in favor of Bayern. Big chances 1-1. So it's like, this isn't, and Wolfsburg goes into the half up 1-0 at Bayern. Yep. So this wasn't really a fluke. Wolfsburg was getting outplayed, but this is how football goes. Like sometimes you get outplayed and you got a 1-0 lead and you see kind of where things go. Obviously Bayern didn't have to deal with Champions League midweek. And I think that ended up, being a bit of a factor.
Probably played a role with the way that Bayern was able to kind of dominate the second half. I think it was the stats. They leaned toward Bayern. I don't think they dominated them really in the first half to that extent. The Kessie Busi goal, like she's very clearly turning to try to get the ball to Bierenstein, like in the middle of like the 6.
It's like hot potato.
Yeah, and then it just ricochets back to her. She's like, all right, I guess I have to shoot here. And gets the goal. So I think, maybe ITC record book could consider an assist for Bierenstein for just creating the havoc there.
Sure.
But then you did kind of see it a little bit toward the end of the first half. There was a moment where Clara Buhl just had Bielda on skates, like in the 38th minute, like as we're kind of getting to the end. And it was like, all right, Bayern's starting to kind of ratchet up the pressure here. And I think you know, this is just, I have a theory about Wolfsburg. So they go up 1-0 and then they just kind of, they just get outplayed in the second half. Is Wolfsburg a higher ceiling version of Perry FC in the sense of sometimes they play great and you're looking at their players and are like, they got a lot of high end great players and their ceiling is high. And then they just have these results where you're like, why are you getting your ass kicked like that? And it's like, they almost have the same floor as Perry FC, but somehow they have like a higher ceiling. Am I off base here?
It's a really interesting comp. I would probably say that for me, Wolfsburg is more like PSG because to me, Paris FC can stay in a match through sheer will.
That's
like,
true.
They could just be like, nope, you're gonna elbow me, I'm gonna elbow you, and then I'm gonna step on your shoe. Right. You're like they're here for it, and I don't know that Wolfsburg has that same streak.
Yeah.
And I think we'll kind of talk about what happened with the goals, but they kind of feel like PSG to me. High ceiling, super high variance.
Yeah.
Can score 4, can score 0 with one shot. Can look pretty good defensively, can look like Swiss cheese defensively, and again everything in between. And then also is capable of spectacular and can beat a really good team on a given day, right? So I think they're probably more. I would say more PSG in my book.
I love that. That's great. The other Paris club. I think you're right. And you know what you nailed is I was like trying to talk about like the ceiling and stuff. Super high variance. That's what I was thinking about. And so I think you're right on there. Speaking of super high variance, just in this match, Stina Johannes, great saves in multiple spots, and then just a howler kicking the ball into Jovana Damjanovic. Jovana Damjanovic, by the way, the greatest active athlete from the country of Serbia in professional sports today, if you ask me.
Let's go.
Because she's not preoccupied, at least I don't know, but I don't think she's preoccupied with horse cart racing back in Serbia, like the big fellow who plays center for the Denver Nuggets. I digress.
I don't know. Do we know that she's not?
What if she's super locked in? What if she's like the rival team owner? That would be incredible.
It's like an angel investor, whatever Jokic is doing.
But yeah, I like Johannes had like multiple great saves, and then that moment happens with Damjanovic, and then Damjanovic scores like another a minute later, just totally turned the game on its head.
I got to talk about the 54th minute before, because the secret low key, secret moment, and this is this was maybe in the back of my head when I was talking about pre-FC they can get a little dirty with you if needed.
Yeah.
Before the Damjanovic goal, right, about 2 minutes before, Pernille Harder and Camila Couver clatter like a nasty one. And again, it's still a 1-0 match in the 54th minute. Couver's got to come off, and she's been great. Obviously, we talked about her, last week against Juve, played a big part in that win. She comes off, is standing on the sideline when the ball comes back into play. Now, when she gets led on the pitch, Couver is sprinting toward Johannes. Now, Johannes doesn't. All she had to do was kind of like just wait a second or just blast it, and like Couver's there in like 2 seconds, like
right. Maybe
less, maybe a second and a half. Couver's in position. Johannes just hot potatoes it. It's got to get it out of her feet, and just does the wrong thing. And Damjanovic, the flying leg,
it's crazy. How many times do you see that and the attacking player's not even close, and the ball's upfield?
It's just unbelievable. And then I think 2 minutes later, you mentioned it. Damjanovic scores again, and it was just a perfect 4-punch combination. Dalman wins the ball back in midfield. Clara Boule, Franziska Kett on the overlap, and then Jovana Damjanovic, and then Wolfsburg just kind of looking around. Like, it's like they put the whole team in the spin cycle. 4 passes, and nobody knows what's going on. Everybody's just absolutely clueless. And in 2 minutes, you went from 1-0. Now you're down 2-1. And then they've got no shot. They have 0 shot at that point. Like, mentally, absolutely cooked.
Yeah, you're not coming back from that. I want to point out real quick because obviously, Georgia Stanway gets a goal. She's set up by a nice pass by Momoka Tanakawa. But in the build up to that, I thought it was a really nice and intelligent header by Bernadette Amani, the 28-year-old midfielder.
She was good.
From Cote d'Ivoire,
Nice.
who's able to who just plays it just perfectly onto Tanakawa's foot. And Bayern just has that in their locker, if you will, with all the skill that they have on the field. And you're right, Wolfsburg was finished after that second Damjanovic goal, and I think it kind of built into that setup for the Stanway goal.
I feel like Bayern's been a little bit more ruthless this year.
Yeah.
I think, it's not that like, oh, get go, chip until we get like the perfect right. Like the Tanakawa to Stanway one was interesting because like they really just walked that one in. It was like that's a, maybe like a more prototypical Bayern goal. But I feel like they really are hungry. They really want to hurt you this year, which I don't really kind of remember seeing. I rattled off those first half stats. 6 shots to 1, 3 shots to 1 on target, 1-1 big chances. You look at the second half, Bayern, 13 shots to 1. Bayern, 9 shots on target to 0. Bayern, 7 big chances to 0. I mean, that's an out and out ass kicking in the second half. And, you got to look at, obviously like our guy Strauss moves on to take over the job at Angel City. And then Jose Barzala, who was the head guy at Servette in Switzerland from 23 to 25 to kind of get them on the radar, kind of steps in and really has figured some stuff out at Bayern and has really changed the feel and the tenor of this squad.
I love it. I think you're spot on with it. And I think, we've talked about Clara Buhl, 25 years old. She stands, 5'8", and she's just a beast out there. And so I think maybe our podcast we try to innovate in the women's football podcasting space. So I'm going to make a comparison that I'm going to go out on a limb and guess not a lot of people have made before. But Kevin Garnett, when we were younger, when he was playing for the Celtics, there was a game on TNT. I can't remember who they were playing, but he has like this monster dunk, and the audio picks up. And I avoided swearing earlier in the program, but now we're like an hour in, so I might as well do it. But the camera picks up after Garnett dunks. You hear him. He's just growling. He's like, I'm a fucking problem out here. I'm a fucking problem. And I just watched Clara Buhl, and I'm just like, she's a fucking problem out there for everybody.
Yeah. I mean, can be the best player on any pitch in any match.
No doubt.
That is her ceiling, that is what it is. I love players that like, it's a weird quirk of mine. Tell me if this makes sense to you. It's a super weird quirk of mine, but I love players that like run hard and like step hard and stomp hard. Like Emily Vangsgaard, Terrell Owens, Randy Moss. And I just feel like Clara Buhl has that that aggressive stomp where it's like, I'm going to, I can cut you and I can kind of like go in and out. I can spin you, because what she did to Caitlin Dykstra on that last goal, where she kind of goes in and out and around, like Dykstra was like completely, just nothing to do. And I think like at that point in the 80th minute, you've just played Juventus, like back to back against Juventus. You have no shot against Clara Buhl in a 3-1 match, 80th minute at Bayern after what you've just gone through. But Buhl absolutely just, ruthless, like just, no regard, like zero regard. And I just love those types of players that take it to that level. And
I think she has levels to go, which should be very frightening for opponents in Frauen Bundesliga and the Champions League.
That's a great point. And I kind of feel like, Barzala could be, I don't know, we could be, circling like that, like the Clara Buhl moment. We had been a little bit high on United. I don't want to say I've kind of like stepped back. I've moved off that a little bit. I kind of feel more like maybe it might be 55-45 towards Bayern, even though maybe it is a little bit of a toss up. But I'm gonna hit you with my arrows. We're approaching the hour mark here. I gotta say Bayern for me, arrow pointing up. I think they've kind of turned a corner a little bit. This isn't the same Bayern that we've seen the last couple of years in Champions League. It does not seem like that. And then for me, I gotta say Wolfsburg. I gotta say arrow pointing down for Wolfsburg. I think what they did versus Juventus might have been the last throes of what they wanted to get to what they want to squeeze out of this season. I just don't see a pathway for them to even really, even I would say even be competitive, unless they're kind of like just saving everything they've got, for the Champions League. I don't really see a pathway for them being able to compete with Lyon.
Okay, I'll say we're in agreement. Bayern, arrow pointing up. I think United has some time to build toward it. I think you're right. You've nodded toward it a couple times during this episode that like United has to kind of get familiar with playing all these extra matches, as part of the Champions League. So I'll say Bayern, arrow pointing up. And I'm going to say with Wolfsburg, I think kind of to my, to what I thought was a Paris FC comp, but you improved with the Paris Saint-Germain comp, is I'm just going to say Wolfsburg, arrow pointing sideways. I think this is kind of who they are. I think they can win an impressive match versus Juventus and then end up kind of getting blasted in the second half versus Bayern. And then, they'll probably have a couple matches before they get to Lyon, where it's, they look great. Why'd they look like that? And then it's just like, okay, who are we going to see versus Lyon?
Yeah. No, I mean, I feel like they're a team that needs a little bit of like I don't want to say a pivot, but I mean, I think we might be reaching the end of this iteration of this team, of this Wolfsburg side. We'll definitely keep an eye on how things go and maybe what kind of shape they're able to work themselves into over these next few weeks. These two teams both will be in action March 11th, DFB Pokal. Wolfsburg will be hosting Eintracht Frankfurt. That's a really juicy matchup. Speaking of juicy, tasty, Bayern takes on Hamburger SV. Hamburger. I mean, a rare matchup between two sides that don't face each other. Maybe medium rare? Who knows?
You know what? I appreciate it. You lived through all my Van Halen quotes. If you want to call a match versus Hamburger a juicy or a tasty matchup, even a medium rare or a rare matchup, go on, man. I support
see it that often.
You don't?
All right, man. Anything else you want to do before we get out of here?
I think that's it. I was gonna save the Senior Gaupset penalty kick and just the incredible Tottenham London City Lionesses match for this part of the show. I couldn't contain myself once we started talking about Tottenham. I couldn't save it. So no, I think that's it. I think we've hit all the good points.
Awesome. All right, I think we did it. This has been another episode of this channel. Thank you for watching, listening, hanging out. If you enjoyed the show. We do this every single week. YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you like to watch or listen. Make sure you like, subscribe, follow, comment, leave us a review. Patreon.com/Into the Channel. Great way to support the show. Into the Channel merch, even greater way to support the show. Shout out to everybody out here ordering merch. I mean, it's cool. Absolutely heartwarming. I mean, just to look behind the curtain. I'm a marketing brand person. It's part of my DNA. So being a part of a brand, being a part of building a brand, with you and with everybody in the community and having people kind of like rally around the brand and like show love to the brand, incredibly rewarding for your boy. So shout out to everybody who's supported us in that way. Incredibly appreciative. Links to all the above, much, much more in the description of this episode. And a big thank you to my co-host as well, Mr. Granigo, for being, the Eddie Van Halen to my David Lee Roth. I appreciate you, bro.
I'll take that comp. Likewise, buddy. I appreciate you. And, Eddie Van Halen, underrated. People talk about him as a great guitar virtuoso because of his solos. Eddie Van Halen, underrated, amazing rhythm guitar player. Like his from verse to verse, I feel like people don't talk about enough what an incredible guitarist he was. I say this as a crappy amateur guitar player myself. But you know what? You've got to roll with the punches to get to what's real. One more quote from the song. David Lee Roth, he was a poet in 1984. Uh, thank you to everybody for watching the show, putting up with this nonsense. Let us know, what did you see from these matches over the weekend from the Champions League team? Drop some knowledge for us. We always appreciate it. And we will see you all next time.